This is the Authority Company Podcast, conversations with leaders that are designing the future. Well, I'm Joe Pardavila, and my guest today is Dr. Midhat Zwayen, president of Dijlah Consulting Engineers. He's also the author of the new book, Leadership Beyond Borders, a Western executive's guide to the Iraqi business mindset. With more than 20 years of experience in Iraq's engineering sector, Midhat bridges Western leadership practices with Iraqi business culture. Midhat, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you, Joe, for hosting me.
You're very welcome. So we have a lot to get to. But first, I want to talk about this sort of relationship between the United States and Iraq from my perspective. So I'm a card-carrying Gen Xer, Midhat, and one of my earliest memories was the attack in Kuwait and that whole thing that started Desert Storm. And then everything seemed fine and hunky-dory. Then you fast forward another 10 years, and then you have the whole Iraq invasion later on with the Bush administration. The other Bush administration. So for my life, all I've known is America good, Iraq bad. There's always been that sort of like, without us, because as you know, here with the States, I mean, you spend a lot of time here. We're not really good at nuance. We love the good old black and white. So I want to know your perspective on it. So I shared your mind. All I knew was I never even heard of Iraq. I was a high school kid, so I'm an idiot. No idea what Iraq was. I hear about that on TV. This is like at the dawn of the cable news era with 24-hour news. So you're hearing about all these horrible stories. Then you get the post 9/11. It's weird. Tell me about your side of that relationship.
Thank you for this question. This is really important, actually. So Iraq, in the 70s. So I was born in the 80s, early 80s. And I lived that era where Iraq was modern. It was very open to the Western countries. Everybody in Iraq speaks English. They focus on that. They are graduated from, a lot of well-known Western universities. And they come back to Iraq, rebuild all that. But again, as you said, the invasion of Kuwait, that was the downhill. I always call it. This is when we stumbled down. The infrastructure went all the way down. The culture got shocked. Went all the way back to the I wouldn't say dark ages, but we went back a step back, I would call it. And since then, we did not stood up. Basically, Iraq did not stood up. You see here and there some Iraqis, they do prove themselves, especially if they leave Iraq, goes to Western countries. You see a couple names here and there. But what that tells you, there's something in there. Nowadays, when I go back and forth a lot. Nowadays, when you come to Iraq, you see that. You see a lot of building coming up, a lot of Western influence in here. I keep telling everybody, if you come into Iraq, they like the American cars, the muscle cars, which is weird. And all of a sudden you see like all those big vehicles, the Chevrolet, the Tahoes of all these people. What's that tells me? The culture moving forward back to what it was supposed to be normal. The reason why it got shifted during Saddam, because it was dictatorship, simple dictatorship. Whatever he says, he's the boss. He says, no. And everybody in Iraq at that time, they were fighting, down to United States, whatever they're saying. But inside them, they know that's bullshit. They know that's not going to happen. They always look into United States as their partner. They look into it. I mean, if you remember in 2003 when Baghdad fell down, the Iraqis welcomed the American army in the beginning. Literally, tanks used to stop in the traffic light. I was like, "Ooh, cool! Look at that! We're in a GTA game." It's just weird how it is, but when Al Qaeda start coming in, that's when it start very dangerous to stand next to a military, an army. But you can see the bond, but it's unfortunately just opened up quickly. And I have that book right now, put it all together to bridge that back this. And in Iraq, it would not stand by itself. No way. The international community is here. They're trying. So the European countries trying to help Iraq, Japan, Korea, they're trying. But honestly, without the American assistance and American cultural influence. It's hard for Iraq to move forward. It's stumbling. It's difficult for it because the technology and the brain is there. And I go a lot to DC and I keep telling them that, of course, they say if it doesn't come from the government, you're not going to do it. So yeah, basically, it's Iraq. It's welcoming nowadays. It's different than it used to be. I wish people more coming. I think I met one of the vloggers or the YouTuber in the streets of Baghdad last week. It was funny. I just stepped in. It's like, "How are you? Do you need any help?" He's like, "Oh, I'm good." So this is it. It's moving forward.
Wow.
Hopefully, within 5 years, we'll see something different. Yes.
Wow, that's great. Thank you very much for that context because that sort of dovetails into you write a leadership book. And
Yes.
and so that's why I opened up with that question. So that's the context with which you come from. Tell me how that upbringing in the 80s and then during the Saddam regime, like when you think about it, you kind of even broke it down. When there's a dictatorship, you kind of like, I don't like this guy, but I got no choice. So how does all of that, the fact that you even grew up at a time where Iraq was flourishing, and then, as you said, went downhill after that. Where do your leadership principles come from when there's so much like so much negativity in your life? Tell me about that.
Definitely. So I feel lucky we lived that era. I mean, again, in the 80s, I was, a kid. But in the 90s, when the sanctions came in, so that shaped personality, a lot of personalities, especially people who were born in the 80s. Um, you have to survive. Usually, the human brain, when you put them in the survive mode, it does a lot of things, a lot of weird things. And I was always fascinated about leadership when I was a kid. My father has an engineering company that worked with Western companies before, whoever was doing business in Iraq. And I used to always sit down with them and listen to them, listen how they talk. Of course, they talk about Saddam here and there and his mismanagement, even especially when he went to Kuwait. He was like, "What are you doing? What is going on? Is he stupid?" Man, all that. So I was like, "What is it?" And of course, if this words came out of my mouth in school, we're done. We're gone. So I learned how to look into things, and I learned how to look at those leaders at the time of those leaders, how they did their business, how they conducted the business, how to communicate with others. Of course, most of them they were using the dictatorship style of Saddam, but there was a people who worked in engineering. They need the people. They need the group work. So when that was shaped my mind on how they did that. It was fascinating. They like literally they go down to the drivers of the T-boy and make them as a friend, and you see like a group, like a family working. That's how it came to me. I was like, wait a minute, this is a good idea to put together in my thesis, and that's how it started. Honestly, it's nice. It's in a book. I don't
Yeah.
want to ruin it. I
Yeah,
wish
no, no.
people
I
to read
I,
it
I always I
and go
hate to
through
go
it.
too deep
Yes.
into the book because I want folks to read it. But I want to talk. You got the fancy title. You're Dr. Mihad. What was it? Tell me about the importance of like getting the PhD and why you talk about how it got there, but why was it? Why was it like okay, this is the thing? Because I think that's a lot of things people talk about. I'd love to get a PhD, but they're like, what are you going to do your doctorate on? So what was it that led to that?
So I'll start from business. Iraq, they didn't know what business is. Always you have to be an engineer or a doctor, a medical doctor. Everywhere, especially in a Khmer society, they're always like that. I was like, no. One of my dads, one of the leaders, he went and he was a general director. He went and took his master's in business from London. Back then it was a big shit, big thing. I was like, what is it? I started looking into it, and then I chose from the beginning this line because I noticed the management in Iraq is stumbling and going downhill. And there you go. Nowadays, they're having issues with that. And so something happened in 2006. The same guy I was looking to, he's the one who told me, "Why don't you go to Malaysia and start studying there? Just go have fun. Don't need to stay here." And I did that
Have
actually.
fun, yeah.
And
Have fun and
I end up
study.
yes, and I ended up taking the masters there with the university from Australia. And I was going to do my continue my doctorate there. And the thesis was in my head most of the time. And I got married, so I moved to the United States. I restarted everything. And so the topic I was writing about, it was kind of rare to see it here and there. It's not easy. And at the same time, I just moved to the United States. I started my family. So I was very have short time. So I went to one of the universities that is quickly accessible. I can, you know, divide my time and between work, and keep in mind I go back and forth to Iraq. I still have at the time I was supervising my dad. I mean, helping him, assisting him in the company. And guess what? After 6 years, I got my PhD. It was a nice journey. I wouldn't say was it easy. It's not easy, but it's very nice. You learn a lot. Your brain gonna reshape itself. The way you think, the way you look at things. When you read books, when you read the history, it's fascinating. I like it. I encourage people to do actually.
That's great. That's so cool. And at Advantage Forbes Books, where you publish your book, we sort of have this internal adage when we ask someone, "Who's this book for?" And if the answer is like, "This book is for everyone," we all immediately, oh boy, because there's no such thing. Maybe the Bible. There's probably there are 2 or 3 books that is for everybody. Whichever religion you are, there's I'm sure a book that's for everyone in that. But when we come at it from the authority building perspective, we're always like, no, no, no. Your book cannot be for everyone. It's got to be for someone. There's got to be that avatar of who the audience is for. So now that we've sort of set the stage, you've lived both worlds, East and West. You and some of the dark sides of the East that you live. Who is this book for? So, is it for someone who wants to learn more about Iraqi infrastructure, business, the mindset you brought with it? Tell me about who you're hoping. I mean, again, we all want everyone to read it, but like, who is the target person for this book, Midhat?
Um, it's honestly for people in the Western countries. Not only specifically for leaders, but for the people to appreciate democracy system they are living in. It's in there. I said how we used to wait in lines for an eggs. Simple. It's basically I was trying to tell people appreciate what you have, nurture it, don't let it go, don't let it collapse. And I was trying to show people between the servant leadership and the dictatorship leadership. So it's way far away, but I'm trying to get it all together. And also, I wanted to bring democracy to the world. Honestly, I see the system as maybe it has to be altered to the countries that heavily influenced from the Soviet Unions back then. And I see that they wanted to reach to that point, but they need the help. They need the assistance. So basically the Western leaders, they need to look into it. The MNC people who have the capabilities to come in and help these kind of emerging economies, emerging markets. I believe it's going to be a good idea for them, and it could be it's a starting point, right? This is a big industry. It's a huge. So I believe for those leaders to start look into it, read about it, and explore, rethink new markets. Because I have clients from Europe. They've been telling me Europe is saturated, no more infrastructure to can do. So the companies start moving to Iraq. Now, why not USA? Well, what's stopping him? I don't see why. I mean, literally, I just had a client, partner from France and from Spain as well. I see them. They rely heavily on the American technology. So why not the American technology itself to come in? And those leaders, maybe that book would be an door opening for them, an eye opening for them. And that's basically my target was.
Love it. And you use the acronym MNC. That's multinational corporations for the folks scoring at home.
Multinational corporations, yes.
Yeah. And so tell me about, because the way you described, I guess Iraq's comeback story is there's a lot to be done there. What's the value proposition for these MNCs? Like you said that you guys are on the uphill, like the hockey shake curve is going up. But sometimes a lot of people yeah, let me know when that curve gets all the way to the top, and then I'm gonna get involved in a situation like that. What's the value proposition right now for MNCs in Iraq?
So early birds, You know what?
I get the
That's
worm. Yeah.
so I always say that if it goes to the top, it's gonna be very difficult for you to come in and to build your relationship between this culture and because you need to adapt to the culture. You're coming into a culture with 7,000 years old. Uh, this culture is saturated with dictatorship from the Babylonians, Sumerians, all the way to Saddam, and this culture can alter and can maneuver you very quickly. And you need to learn that before you get into the business with them. If how to learn that, you need to come sit with them in the coffee shop. Look at that. Look what they think. Look at what's their important thing in life. What they look into. Um, how they wear things and how they live the heat. How they survive the heat here. The weather is very extreme here, and I think it's there. We just need to bring the message up. We just need to work together to bring Middle East to this calm place. Hopefully, yeah.
That's great. Out of curiosity, you work with a lot of Western executives. This is who sort of like your book is for. But what are some of the common misconceptions that Western executives have about Iraq? Are there any that stand out that, and again, I don't, one of the things never want to dwell on negatives, but I think if you kind of like cut the negatives at the knee, it leads into a positive. So tell me about like some of these common misconceptions that Western executives might have when it comes to getting in early, as you say.
Misconception about Baghdad itself. I would say Baghdad now because we have
Yeah.
a lot of cities, but they think we're Kabul. No, we're not. This is not Kabul. This is Baghdad. This is different. This is the jewel of Middle East. It used to be the jewel. It used to be the capital of the world. I mean, it's not. And they think of us very, uh, like you can come in with a lot of scarves and everything. No, it's not like that anymore. Iraqis open up, getting westernized. The women's here, they are in. They're trying to, especially the younger generation, they're trying to become open-minded. They're trying to become leaders of the future. I have my colleagues in Baghdad. I see that in them, and they need that push from the Western country, from the democratic leaders that lived in that system. Again, keep in mind, Iraq lived through thousands of years about dictatorship. All this is what they know. We don't have never had the democratic system. United States put that seed in 2003, started 2003 in the Middle East. Look around us. Who have that? I mean, only maybe Israel. That's it. We don't have it in Middle East. If you look into it in deep, in details. I'm not saying to bring what we have in the United States to Iraq, but alter it to fit the Iraqi culture. And I think they should come in early and look into it. Yeah.
No, that's so cool. You mentioned the fact that Iraq is, 6,000 years old. And, here us Americans, we're like, oh, man, America, we've been around for so long. It's only 250. That's like a pimple on the history of Iraq, which is pretty remarkable. Tell me about how, because in the book, you really get into the history of Iraq, which is very educational for folks who, again, are kind of idiots like me who just heard about Iraq for the first time in like 1991. But tell me about like some of how ancient history of Iraq still influences today, or if it doesn't, like, is there any of that sort of like DNA of going back 6,000 years still embedded within the community there in, obviously Baghdad, but around across Iraq?
So if you look in Iraq history, it's used to be a Jewish colonies here. Before that, after that, Christian, and then the Arabs came in. Now, all Arabs came from what's called nowadays Saudi Arabia. They went to Egypt, to Syria, to everywhere, right? Now, if you look into Iraqis, they're different, but the same from this descended from the same place, right? The difference you can tell from the culture influenced heavily on them. The language is different, the mentality is different, and they're very aggressive. It's not because of that, because this is he's talking about Babylon. It's the cradle of civilization, and you can see it. Let's go back to. So I helped my wife in her school, and they were teaching him on how to build the cities. She's in urban planning. And it was fascinating when I looked in, oh, wait, they're talking about Baghdad, round Baghdad. I was like, cool. So basically, urban planning starts with that. To start the city, they take an example of round Baghdad and then move on. So that's how you see the influence in the streets, the organizing of the streets. So that's how you look at it. Like, wait a minute, this I mean, when you come in and see the ruins of Babylon, the ruins of Ur, all these ruins, you're like, wait a minute, it looks like it looks like New York. But of course, New York now with the technology and
Right.
the highest skyscraper, but this looks like the system basically the same basic.
Wow.
So what does that tell you? There you go. Yeah.
That's really cool. That's awesome. And here in the States, we it's one of those things where history always repeats itself. So like I mentioned, I'm Gen X. So going back to me entering the workforce is like, how do we work with the Gen X workforces? This is how they think. Then it was millennials. And we're currently now, if you're on LinkedIn or you're reading any business, I would say half of the quote unquote culture articles are about how do we integrate Gen Z into the workforce. So you mentioned a little bit how things are changing on the ground there in Baghdad. Are you seeing more stark generational differences because of the fact that now these kids have technology when past generations did not? Because even, you go back to Gen X, we had technology. We were at the early onset of the web, and then obviously millennials and Gen Z were born into it. But in Iraq, it's almost like a switch was flipped where you went from zero technology to all technology. So how does that affect in terms of like generations there? Because you obviously have probably like Gen Xers and millennials that didn't have technology, but now you have this Gen Z there that has it. Tell me about that there, because it's got to be a fascinating case study in terms of like how technology affects generations when there is no technology.
Yeah. I not only the Gen Z I have the baby boomers as well.
Oh,
Imagine
sure.
that. And
Yeah.
and have to measure between those two, between these three generations. And actually what I like now these days, the young who are born mid 90s and up, the education they're getting from the social media, the influence from social media is a lot to them. Back then, when I was young, I have to read a book. I have to go to the library, look at the book, and then if the book is there, and not only that, the author of the book, no matter whoever, whatever he's talking about, the geography was hard to understand. Oh, how big is the United States? I thought United States is like small. And when I came to the United States, like 6 hours flight from New York to LAX, oh, it's a lot. So nowadays, when you talk to those kids like here, they know that. I didn't know that when I was in their age. Not only that, now back then when the computer was a big thing for us, when the IBM when it came out, I was just like, I have to put a button and cover it and all that. Nowadays with the phone, they do a lot of things. And not only that, there's a lot of knowledge in there. There's a lot of a culture blend, and they are looking into the English. They want to learn the English. The learning curve is fascinating. The people like some of them, they have an accent, but they learning.
Wow.
I mean, I have some people in the higher education. I was telling them the curriculum needs to be adjusted because the books it looks like obsolete to me anymore. It just doesn't work. The technology is teaching them. Keep in mind, AI coming out recently. Now, if quantum computer come out, you know, there's a lot of change going to happen in the world, not only in Iraq. I don't know who's that going to be observed and how people going to react to it. But I think it's something good. We need to look into it. All these companies need to use it for their own benefits. And I don't know how, but we can work it out. I'm pretty sure if people sit down together and put those together, yeah, I think we can do it. And it's you should. I mean, I hope there's more in the media about Iraq normal life, not whatever in the news about politics and all that. No, just normal. Just get a camera, go around and look around. You'll see totally different story. And
Wow.
guess what? Iraq went through a lot of wars, and it was harsh, especially the last one with ISIS. But they go right away, jumped up. What does that tells you? The people still alive, they're life, they're vibrant. They want to build themselves. They want to compete with the world, and that's I think the potential there we can use.
Wow, that's great. Good stuff. And please indulge me in this question. So here in the States, as you know, Mihat, people, there's a censorship issue. And obviously we have the First Amendment and all this other stuff. What's it like there, Iraq? Is there, like, you mentioned the kids have phones and technology. Is there censored content? Tell me about what's going on there in terms of like how your new government there is handling how this information is getting to kids. Because this is like literally turning on the fire hose, Miyat. You went from not even a drip of water to like a
No,
full blown jet of
I
water.
know. It's a
How is
lot.
the government handling this?
So again, we can't blame the governments. Keep in mind, the government is the Iraqis who lived through dictatorship. And not only that, we were heavily influenced by the communists. So they're shifting from communist to democratic system. There's still a lot of those laws still under Saddam's laws, the Ba'ath Party laws. They're trying here and there, altering it. In the same time, they have elections coming up. They're like, choosing the prime minister. They're trying hard to bring that to them to alter it to what's going on. So there is censorship. It's there, but still weak. And it's been the government been trying hard to monitor all this, but again, the technology they have it's outdated. The bureaucracy is really high here, and because it's still again they're using the dumb system. I mean the BAS system. That system it does not work with 40 to 50, 45 to 50 million people anymore. We back then, I keep telling everybody, back then Saddam had only what 12 million, 14 million people max. Now we have a lot of people and they're free. They can talk, they can say the social media in one tweet. He can, rage a fire in there. And between the young, especially the young. I mean, the issue movement was a very good example for that. What I'm trying to say, the government needs to understand they are the servants, the public servant. The servants, they don't understand that yet. They're still using, oh, I'm the boss here. No, you're just helping each other in here. So it's there. They're trying, but keep in mind, Iraq just came out of ISIS 2018 or something.
Yeah.
It's just 17. It's just things start calming down. Again, when you come now, Iraq is different. Each time I go back and forth between the United States, every 3 months I come, there's something new restaurants, new food, something new. It's even hotels are new coming
That's
out.
great.
So in 10 years, what's going to be? The government needs to rapidly move quickly to the public sector and to the private sector as well to match each other, because this is when you need to bring the international investment to Iraq to invest in Iraq. So the laws need to adjust.
You mentioned earlier that multinationals, now's a good time coming early. Good signs. Are there any that are there now that are taking advantage of the quote unquote coming in early? Are you seeing that on the ground there in Baghdad?
Not yet. I've seen a lot of Chinese companies in the streets. Literally, they go on the buses, just go on the bus, public transport. And I'm like, I don't do that. I don't have time to do that. It's a waste of time. But they go, and Western countries just started coming in, just literally like early of this year. They start looking into Iraq. They're trying to come in to have their own offices, open their own regional office in Iraq, but with a shy movement, still very shy.
Yeah.
I'm hoping United States to come in. There's a big potentials in here. They shouldn't leave it.
Another silly question, Mihad. Thank you for indulging me. But like, is there a McDonald's in Baghdad? Is there like American fast food there? Like, has that touched it? Because I always love that. Like, that's always really cool. I know it's kind of cheesy, but like when I see like a McDonald's in the middle of like Belgium, you're like, wow, that seems weird, but it's also cool. Do you see that there yet in Baghdad?
Guess what? Yes, yes. But so not McDonald's though. But we have
Okay.
the Burger King, KFC.
Okay.
I think they have the I forgot that name. The Pizza Hut, I believe.
Okay. And are the people digging it? Are they enjoying that?
Yes. Oh yeah. A lot of people. Yeah. And there's had some issues, some incidents back in, when they started, because again, the proxies they didn't like that.
Yeah.
But it's packed in there. I mean, they're nice. You can quick, easy drive through, just pick up your lunch, which is I do sometimes, not all the time. And it's the Iraq has a good cuisine. It's the Persian and Turkish infused with Iraqi food, Arab food. So it's a good cuisine. I don't think they compete. They can compete
Okay.
with the burger from the United States, but yeah, it's there.
And speaking of that fusion, also language, because I know Arabic is the number one language, but I think Kurdish is like a close number two. Tell me about with these when these multinational companies come in, what's the language barrier going to be like? You did mention earlier the fact that a lot of people are speaking English, but how do you suggest companies navigate that when there are multiple languages that are being spoken there, without offending one party to the other? I mean, tell me about that sort of relationship of the language in Iraq.
Yeah. So again, I'm going to go back to the 70s. In the 70s, when I went to school, they taught us three languages. So English, Arabic, and the Kurdish. So my generation still have the English and Kurdish and Arabic, of course. And the young generation, they don't have that. Unfortunately, they don't have the Kurdish. It's Kurdish fading away. They have their own. They don't speak Arabic. So those companies usually what they do, they alter. They have their own offices in the Kurdistan region. They speak Kurdish and adapt the culture. The Kurdish culture, by the way, Kurdish culture, it has its own taste than the Iraqis in the south or in the east. So they do have their own people, and I mean, to me myself, I hire people. They speak that language, the English, Arabic, and mainly they can use English and Arabic. And if they work in the Kurdistan region, they're gonna have English Kurdish language.
Okay, cool. So it doesn't seem like that's a big hurdle to go over. Just the fact that
No.
because English, it is funny though too that like we started this conversation talking about this sort of like factious relationship between Iraq and the United States. Yet, like you said, a lot of people speak of English there. Why do you think that still remained even through all the living hell you guys been through? Because you always do hear about when there's a dictatorship or some sort of harsh leader, they're like, okay, we are only speaking this language, and if you speak this other language, you're gonna get your head cut off or something horrible happen to you. How did the English language survive through all these tumultuous times there?
So let's be honest. The creation of Iraq, the modern Iraq, was by the English. And Iraqis stayed in their head, if you want to do good, if you want to study, and if you want to be international, the English is the way to go. I myself, my dad insisted on me to go to study English. Not only that, in my school, there was an option to speak Russian or Chinese or Spanish. So of course I chose Spanish. So I have little there here for 5 years studied Spanish and was in my middle school all the way to high school. And but the focus was only on English because English, let's be honest, in the world, it's the opening door for you to start communicating with people. You need the English. You need the mutual understanding, which is the English. Iraqis knows that, and everybody who works with international companies or they travel, English is the way to go to. Um, Again, it's learning language. It's opening. It's by itself. It's opening. It opens your mind. It's altering your mind, the way you think, the way you look at the culture of the because English in England is different than English in the accent and all those
Right.
in the United States. When I learned English at the beginning, my accent looks. When I went to Malaysia, they thought I'm Russian. I'm like, no, but it looks like I had an accent with the Russian accent. But again, if we get influence more to from the United States, I think it's going to be quicker and easier to understand the American culture because Iraq and Iraqis, myself too, I looked at the United States from Hollywood. We thought it's only gangsters and Godfather and all that.
Right.
When I moved to the United States, I was like, no, there's a families in here. There's a family oriented here. There's people religious in here. There is a lot of a spectrum of people. this is what I'm trying to say. We need to get that into them so they understand, like, oh, these are just normal people like us. So I think the language is the start.
That's great. All right, cool. So for Western executives who might be interested in bringing their multinational to Iraq, step one is read your book, right? But step two is what? What's the first step they should take into potentially, setting up a shingle in Iraq, expanding their businesses to Iraq? What would you suggest that leader first do? Well, secondly, first read the book, but secondly, what should be their next step when it comes to beginning that journey?
Understanding the culture, not just to jump in, and don't come with a gun in your wrist, like just with your hand. How to do that? Partner with the Iraqis. There's a lot of Iraqis these days. They speak the language. They understand what's American. Hollywood model is gone. It's fading, and I think those who are willing to come into Iraq, they should partner with Iraqis, and they will teach you. They will teach you the right directions, how to do it, and where and what not to do. Because just like United States, there's neighborhoods you shouldn't go with a fancy vehicles, you know that. And but when you go to, let's say, to LA, who you can ask? The locals, right? If that the neighborhood, should I live here? I have this and that. And people will tell you what to do. People are simple. People like to help each other, and I believe the first step to do is collaborate with Iraqis, collaborate with somebody local in a similar industry. They will show you the way. They're eager to help. I mean, those people merchants came to the United States, to Vegas, to start some of that between the bond to bring some merchandise to Iraq, to United States, from the United States to Iraq. Unfortunately, it didn't happen because some difficulties of financial difficulties and all that. But if that happens, oh yeah, it's a very welcoming community.
That's great.
Everywhere.
All right. Midhat, I always wrap up these conversations taking folks behind the dedication of the book, and you dedicate it to your family. But there's a sentence in there where it says, "To all the people I've been surrounded with who have agreed and disagreed with me." Tell me about these people that disagreed with you. What were they disagreeing with you about?
What makes you stronger? Those fights. It was very hard, but I learned a lot from these. When I stumbled a lot, people pushed you more, and they take advantage of that. But guess what? Learning from life is the most important thing than learning from school. The practicality of the life, that's how it is. And I thank them, because without them, I would not understood how to become who I am in the United States. It's the United States not easy. From a guy from Iraq, through all those wars, all this, dictatorship, wars, all that. And then all of a sudden, I'm thanks God, I'm successful in the United States. I'm doing good, I would say successful. And how is that came from those stumbling times, from those people who was, they give me a hard time. The good lesson. I call it, this is the good lesson. So yeah, I always thank them for that.
That's great. He is Dr. Midhat Zwayen. The book, Leadership Beyond Borders, a Western Executive Guide to the Iraqi Business Mindset. Midhat, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Joe, for hosting me. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. I hope everybody enjoys the book. And please, welcome to Iraq.
And that's going to do it for this episode. If you want to find out more information about Midhat and our other amazing authors, go to theauthoritycompany.com.